Alright, hello everyone, my name is Sarah, and today we're going to learn about some innovations and inventions being made by the Korean military today. Alright, well this article is a little bit more difficult than some of the articles that we've done in the past, so keep that in mind and stay patient, and I'll try to explain everything as clearly as I can. Alright, are you guys ready? Let's start. Since 2001, Korea has been focusing on diversifying its platforms with fourth industrial revolution technologies, such as artificial intelligence and self-driving. Okay, so there's a lot of stuff already happening in this very first sentence. So basically, Korea has been focusing on diversifying its platforms. So it's trying to make more diverse or have more different types of things that they make, things that they do. So they're diversifying or 다양화시키고 있어. So I think that's how you say it in Korean. Please don't be mean about my pronunciation. I'm still learning too. So the Korean military, they've traditionally done A, B, and C, but now they're trying to do A, B, C, and also D, E, and F. So they're making things more diverse. They're doing more types of things at the same time. They're diversifying their platforms. Okay, so they want to diversify their platforms using fourth industrial revolution technology. So some of you guys might have heard of the first industrial revolution. I believe that was the steam engine. And then the second one, I'm not really sure what one that is. But anyway, the fourth industrial revolution pertains to technology. So the internet, computers, STEM, robots, things like that. So the Korean military, they want to diversify and use this fourth industrial revolution technology to build things that use artificial intelligence or 인공지능 and self-driving. So traditionally, when you're in the military, you have to have people literally driving the tanks or people, shooting the missiles or the guns to make sure that they go where they're supposed to go. So they're trying to use the technology so that instead of people having to do these things, technology such as artificial intelligence and self-driving can be used, and hopefully this will keep fewer people out of the actual combat, and potentially this would be safer, hopefully, for people, fingers crossed. I like safety. In particular, the country aspires to develop unmanned systems and defense robots that can apply cutting-edge science. Very cool. So Korea, they're aspiring, or they're hoping to develop unmanned systems. So they want to develop these self-driving cars or self-driving machines that use artificial intelligence. And so basically, they're unmanned. They don't need a person driving or pressing the buttons inside of the machine. And in order to do this, they're going to have to apply or use cutting-edge science. So I think that's 첨단 기술 or 첨단 과학. So things that are on the cutting edge. They're brand new, they're very complicated and exciting. It's very cutting edge. So usually this word, cutting edge, it's typically used to describe technology or science. In an attempt to gain innovative weapons based on advanced technologies, the Defense Acquisition Program Administration recently announced the Rapid Acquisition Program, and that aims to encourage Korean arms industries to swiftly develop items with their technologies. Okay, so it's a little bit word soup on this page. That's a little bit of a kind of like a slang expression to describe something with a lot of difficult words, and sometimes you don't know what all of them mean. So don't worry, we're going to explain them one by one. So in order to get these unmanned systems using cutting-edge science, they're going to have to innovate or do new things that haven't been done before. So they want to gain these innovative or new or newly invented weapons, and they have to use this advanced technology. So, okay, how are they going to do this? Well, the Korean Defense Acquisition Program Administration, which is I believe, a department of the military where they acquire or purchase or buy or get or make certain technology or programs that they can use for the military. So this administration, it announced the Rapid Acquisition Program. So what they're trying to do is quickly or rapidly acquire or get different types of technology that they can use to gain and create innovative weapons. Okay, are you guys following? I know it's a little bit more difficult than usual this week, but you know, it's okay. We're gonna try our best. And so the purpose of creating this program and acquiring or getting all these different programs as well as technologies, it's to aim to encourage Korean arms industries to swiftly develop items. So just a quick note here. So Korean arms industries. Let's look at that. Okay, so what do you think arms means right here? All right, well, it might be a little bit obvious through the context because we're talking about the military here, but in this context, the word arms, it doesn't mean, you know, the arms that are on your body, it's about weapons. So the reason why it's called arms, I believe, is it comes from the same root as the word army or yukgun. So the army, they take up arms or they put on weapons and armor in order to, you know, participate in war and, you know, hopefully make it out okay. Okay, so they made this program and it wants to encourage the arms industry or the weapons industry to quickly or swiftly or rapidly develop items with their technology. Whew, okay, so it's a little bit complex. Among multiple inventions, multi-purpose unmanned vehicles are considered the most practical item for playing various roles. Without any human assistance, they can carry multiple supplies and launch strikes on the enemies after searching their fields. Okay, so we just talked about all the different technology that these people are using. They're using artificial intelligence. They want to use unmanned vehicles in order to swiftly develop items for the arms industry. But out of all of the things they can do with that sort of technology, they think that multi-purpose unmanned vehicles are the most practical. So multi-purpose, so multi, many, purpose, 목적, so 다 목적, unmanned vehicles. So multi-purpose unmanned vehicles, they're a type of machine or vehicle or car that it doesn't have a person on it, it's unmanned, but it can be used for multiple purposes. So you can do a lot of different types of things using the same type of technology and also 0 humans. So pretty cool, pretty interesting. And so that's why they're considered the most practical items for playing various roles. So they can play these various roles without any humans doing anything. They just, you know, maybe they press some buttons far away in a lab or something, but they don't have to be there on the ground actually running the machines or, you know, using a remote control, just like this. So that's why they're practical or useful. So as I just said, without any human's assistance, they can carry multiple supplies and launch strikes after searching for enemies. So to launch a strike is to shoot a weapon, usually some kind of missile. So it's a type of attack that you use in the military. So yeah, I mean, war is scary and bad, obviously. So kind of the whole purpose of having a military is to launch and defend against strikes or attacks. So strike, it can mean literally like a 치기, or it can mean a military attack. According to military experts, Hanwha Defense and Hyundai Rotem were the most competitive powerhouses for the program. Although Hyundai Rotem's product was selected as the most competitive invention, experts say there was nothing to choose between them. Okay, so we're trying to develop these multi-purpose unmanned vehicles. We're using artificial intelligence. We're using rapid acquisition programs to encourage these new items. And so who is actually making these things? Well, these two companies called Hanwha Defense and Hyundai Rotem, they were the most competitive powerhouses. So when you're a powerhouse, that means in your field, you're a giant. You're doing a lot of things and people are looking to you to see what kind of new technology is coming out. So for instance, in the United States or even in Korea, you could call Samsung and Apple their cell phone technology or mobile phone powerhouses because they're the ones that are occupying most of the market and they sell and they make a lot of new things. So that's why they're competitive. So you become a powerhouse by becoming competitive. You beat out the competition, you make a better product, you make more product, you sell more product, and that's how you become a powerhouse. Whew. So, although Hyundai Rodom's product was selected as the most competitive invention, experts say there was nothing to choose between them. So, what does that mean? Let's check it out on the next slide. Hanwha Defense successfully developed a multi-purpose unmanned vehicle that can be carried by a medium-sized military helicopter. It only weighs about 1,500 kilograms and is even smaller than a light car. Okay, so let's think about all this kind of technology. So in the past, the military would use things like tanks or really, really big guns or really, really big planes, etc. in order to carry out these attacks. Well, now they're trying to use these unmanned vehicles, so these vehicles that don't have any people on them, to carry out these attacks. But the question is, if you're in Korea and you want to use this technology, let's say in another country, how exactly do you get it there? And if it's really, really heavy, how do you transport it without, the enemy finding out what you're doing and destroying it before you're even able to arrive? Well, Hanwha Defense was able to develop a vehicle that can be carried by a medium-sized military helicopter. So it's small enough and light enough for a helicopter to pick it up and take it to where it needs to go. And that's really, really important when you're doing something with the military. So the unmanned vehicle weighs about 1,500 kilograms, which for a person, obviously this would be extremely heavy and, not such a good thing. But in the military context, it's actually even smaller than a light car. Very interesting. Meanwhile, Hyundai Rotem has developed an unarmed vehicle named HR Sherpa. It can not only be used by military personnel, but it can also be used for civilian purposes. With a 6-wheel electric driving system and airless tires, it is advantageous when it comes to rough driving. Since airless tires never blow out, it can be used for a long period of time. Ooh, very, very cool. So this company, Hanwha Defense, they made the multi-purpose unmanned vehicle that can be carried by a helicopter. Very, very interesting. Meanwhile, the other company, Hyundai Rotem, developed an unarmed vehicle named the HR Sherpa. So an unarmed vehicle, we just discussed earlier that arms in this context, it doesn't mean, fire, it means weapons. So an unarmed vehicle is a vehicle that doesn't have any weapons on it. So this vehicle can be used not only by military personnel or persons who are in the military, but it can also be used for civilian purposes. So a civilian simply means anyone who is not in the military. So if you're fighting a war in a foreign country, you're supposed to be fighting the war with other soldiers, because it's not really fair if you just go into a village and start fighting with civilians, just regular people. They don't have training, they don't have weapons, they don't really have a way to defend themselves. So, that's not such a good thing to do. But fortunately, this technology, it can be used not only by military personnel for the purposes of war, but it can also be used for civilian purposes. So things that don't have anything to do with the military. And it can probably be used for civilian purposes because it's unarmed. So there's no weapons on it. So it's a type of vehicle, doesn't have any weapons on it, and possibly, looking at the context, it looks like it's also an unmanned vehicle. So it might be a self-driving car, doesn't have any weapons on it, but it can be used for civilian purposes to get you from point A to point B. Doesn't necessarily have to do with war, but it can also be used in a war for other purposes. So what enables it to do that? Well, with a 6-wheel electric driving system and airless tires, it's advantageous when it comes to rough driving. So in Korea, the roads are relatively well paved, and if you have a car, it's usually pretty easy to get to where it is that you want to go, because most of the roads are covered in concrete, right? Well, that's not necessarily always the case in other countries, especially in places where you're not supposed to be driving. So especially something like the desert or the rainforest or another place where there's not really roads made for vehicles. Having a vehicle with 6 wheels run by electricity and uses airless tires, it's advantageous. So it gives you a special benefit to do this, or an advantage. And it's especially advantageous when it comes to rough driving. So just regular old driving, you're on the road is relatively smooth. It's not really that rough. It's pretty easy to get to where it is you want to go, as long as you actually know how to drive the car. However, in the case of rough driving, so driving on terrain or a type of soil or a path that it's not really made for the purposes of driving, it can be kind of rough. It can feel kind of bumpy and not very smooth. It has 6 wheels, so there's 6 different places on the ground where it's grabbing the dirt, which is going to make it much easier to move forward, even if it comes to like a log or a hole or a rock or something. It uses electricity to drive. So, you know, if you're in the middle of the rainforest and you run out of gas, you can't really run over to the gas station because there is none. So it's important that these vehicles, they are run by electricity. So ideally, hopefully, I hope that there's a way to do this, but ideally you would pull out some kind of solar panel and you can charge your electric car using the energy from the sun. That way you're not dependent on having a gas station or something like that in the area in order to get to where it is you want to go. And on top of that, it has airless tires. Okay, so let's think of it. So do any of you drive? Possibly not. A lot of you are still in high school. But for those of you who drive or often hang out with people who do drive, the worst nightmare situation is you run over something sharp and your tire, full of air, it pops and all of the air goes out and you can't really get to where you need to go anymore because your wheels on your car, they're no longer even and they can't really grab the pavement very well. So because these tires, they don't have any air in them, they're impossible to pop. They're impossible to burst. So that's why it's advantageous when you are rough driving. Whew. Okay, I know this was a lot of complicated stuff, so thank you so much for sticking it out to the end. Okay, last sentence. Since airless tires never blow out, it can be used for a long period of time. So just like I said, because there's no air inside of the tires to begin with, the air can't come out. So the tires are impossible to blow out. And that's what makes it good or advantageous for rough driving. So the Defense Acquisition Program Administration eventually decided to send Hyundai Rotem's vehicle to the military in 2021. Very cool. So this company, they decided, okay, this is really, really good technology and we want to use it in the military. So they decided to send it to the military next year. All right, well, that is all for today's video. I hope that you guys enjoyed this it was kind of a departure from our usual material. It's a little bit different from the stuff that we normally do. And so thank you so much for sticking it out to the end. I hope that all of you guys who are really interested in technology, STEM, etc. enjoyed learning some of this tricky vocabulary, but it's actually very useful or advantageous to know it. All right, well, I will see you all again next week and have a wonderful day. Bye.